changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. It's Thoughtful Thursday, and this is the day that I share a story that made me stop and think, a story that gave me a new perspective. I want to talk about a story from our latest book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Power of Gratitude. The story is called Why Didn't I Think of That? And it's by Eileen Melia Hessian. Eileen begins her story by talking about running in a race for the first time in a long time after she recovered from an injury. She was so happy at the end of the race. Just being out there again with nothing hurting was wonderful. And she was feeling good when she got in the line for the runners to pick up a bottle of water and a banana. She saw this elderly, obviously homeless woman in the line too, but she didn't think that much about it. The woman was loading up on water and bananas, and she was ignoring the volunteer who kept telling her that the food was only for the runners. The old woman just kept grabbing as many bottles of water and bananas as she could carry. Then another volunteer stepped in and said it wouldn't be fair to the slower runners if the old lady took everything, so they made her put it all back. And Eileen was kind of mumbling in agreement with this. But then a minute later, Eileen saw a young woman ahead of her take her one banana and her one bottle of water and give them to the homeless woman, who looked up at her with sad eyes and nodded a thank you. And Eileen says, "Why didn't I think of that?" And she tells us that she was so engrossed in how good she was feeling about her race that she just didn't think about that homeless woman. And then Eileen shares another anecdote with us in her story. She says she was rushing into the supermarket to buy some refreshments for a meeting that was about to start. She was really in a hurry, so she was happy to see that the line wasn't too long. But then everything ground to a halt right in front of her when the man before her in line was very, very slowly trying to pay his bill of $4.72. He was counting out the singles and the coins, and he only had $4.32, as it turned out. He started searching his pockets, looking desperately for the missing 40 cents. Eileen found herself sighing and looking at the clock and acting pretty impatient in line behind this man. And then the woman in line behind Eileen reached forward and handed the cashier the missing 40 cents. The man looked embarrassed and thanked her quietly, and the lady smiled at him and said, "Don't worry about it. Have a nice day." And Eileen says again, "Now, why didn't I think of that?" And then she shares another anecdote. She was going to Orlando, Florida on business, and if you've ever been on a flight to Orlando, you know the plane will be filled with kids. And there was a particularly noisy baby right in Eileen's row. He wouldn't stop crying in that high-pitched, loud, head-splitting way that babies can get. I personally know that I was that mother with the screaming baby more than once on a flight, and there's nothing you can do. Your baby decides to scream his head off, and you're just stuck. You're sitting there embarrassed and helpless. So this poor mother in Eileen's row was trying to quiet her baby, and she was also taking care of her toddler who was with her. Lots of passengers were grumbling about the baby. And Eileen was not grumbling, but she wasn't feeling very good about this baby either. And then an older woman approached and said to the young mother, "You've got your hands full. Why don't you play with your daughter for a bit, and I'll walk the baby up and down the aisle. Maybe the movement will calm him enough to fall asleep. And don't worry, I'll be in your sight the whole time." It worked. The baby fell asleep, and all the passengers were relieved. And then Eileen wrote again, "Now, why didn't I think of that?" And then she tells us why. She says she was thinking two things: how annoying the baby was, and how grateful she was that it wasn't her baby. So after those three incidents, the homeless woman at the race, the man without enough money at the store, and the crying baby on the plane, Eileen saw a pattern. She never thought to help someone, and then she saw someone else step up and do it. Eileen says she doesn't want to have to keep asking herself that question. Now, why didn't I think of that? So going forward, she's going to be the one who steps up and helps someone in need. It only takes little things, a few coins, a bottle of water, a few minutes helping a struggling mother. And as we all know, it's always the person doing the kind thing who benefits the most. You basically walk around on a cloud all day after you do some little act of kindness for a stranger. I'm Amy Newmark. Thank you for listening to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast today. If you want to learn more about the book I mentioned, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Power of Gratitude, go to our website, chickensoup.com. Now, tomorrow is Friend Friday, and we're going to talk to Tony Romando, who's from Topics Media Lab. They've created a new Chicken Soup for the Soul product that has just appeared on newsstands and in the magazine sections of stores all over the country. And it's something new that I had never heard of before. It's called guided journaling, and it promises to be the next big thing after all those coloring books for adults that you've been seeing.